Welcome to Soltron. This is a video review for Glory Alliance Season 2 Puli. Here's the Transformers size comparison, so you can see they're bigger than Leader Class. And then here's a few more from the season that I'll be reviewing shortly. And then here's a look at the instructions. Really nothing special. It's your typical black and white instructions. And then on the other side, you've got a look at the kind of the headmaster gimmick. And that's it, really nothing interesting going on here. All right, and here's the 360 view of this guy. I really like, of course, police robots. So, of course, all the sirens and the transparent plastic I think are really cool. And I think he's really on theme. His weapons are especially really good. So overall, I think the aesthetic of this robot is kind of like a maybe like an 8 out of 10. He's a pretty good looking robot. He's above average for sure. I definitely like his style. And let's start off with what I would say is the worst aspect of this figure, and this is the head sculpt. The head is just mushy looking. It reminds me kind of a toad. The head sculpt really undermines the whole rest of the figure, and I think a little bit kind of ruins it. It's just got a lot going on. It's too long. It's got these hips under the chin, which just make the whole thing look kind of like he's got a double chin. The head just does not pull off the look that I would like this guy to have. Let's do a little preview of the next figure I'm going to review. So this is what the head robot should actually look like. And then you compare that to this, you can see there's a huge difference. The paint separation, I think, really helps define the face a little bit better, so there's not that much gray. And it makes the head sculpt look a little bit bigger when these biceps are gray. It's just this head works a little bit better. It's still got kind of the same problems. It's got these like balls under the chin, and then it just doesn't quite work, but it almost does. It's very close. It's just the head should probably be squished a little bit. Like if we compare that to a Transformers Headmaster, you got a really good looking head at the expense of the core robot, and I'll show that off in a second. But this core robot is actually very cool looking, but it comes at the expense of the combined mode head, which is unfortunate and I don't think really worth it. So that's my biggest gripe with this figure, is just the heads are all terrible looking for the entire line, which is very unfortunate. They should have made, like they did in the first season, an alternate head that doesn't transform, that looks a little bit better. That would have been much cooler instead of just getting stuck with these heads that just don't look very good. But otherwise, aesthetically, I think there's a lot to like in this figure. He's a little bit busy looking. And then the hip skirts on the back are definitely not doing him any favor. This is just pure shell forming back here, unfortunately. This should have been integrated a little bit better. But because of that shell forming, you get a really cool, sleek looking robot. And then he comes with some pretty cool accessories, like he's got this revolver, which is a really good looking accessory. Even though the screws kind of mess it up a little bit, it still looks very cool. And then he's got, I don't know what this is, a flashlight or maybe like grenade launcher, maybe a nightstick kind of thing. I don't know. The directions don't even really show it, so I don't know what that's supposed to be. And then you've got this other arm cannon weapon, which also looks pretty devastating. So really cool accessories. And then his posing is a little bit janky. It's mostly because he's got just so much junk hanging off of him is the big thing that messes him up. So he's got nice ratchets in the shoulder, you can hear. And then the other problem with this gun is he can't really hold it correctly. His fists just don't work that way. And the fingers are so weak that it's not going to get a good grip on this gun. But you can kind of get him like in a cool two-handed pose. And then his head does have some rotation. It's a little bit limited. It can only do this, swivel back and forth. But you can kind of get a cool looking pose with him holding his gun. So I do appreciate that. His revolver is just so cool looking. And then, so this only swivels, and you can see it's because the joint is just this friction joint, but it works fair enough. I'm not worried about that like wearing out or breaking. And then for his shoulder articulation, you can kind of see it under his shoulder armor here, but he's got like a good universal ratchet joint in the shoulder. So the outward has some clicks on it, the forward and backwards has some clicks, and then he's got bicep swivel, very nice, double joint elbow, so pretty highly posable elbow. And he's got ball joint wrists, which are kind of unnecessary. I even think the ratchets in the shoulder are a little bit tighter than they really need to be. It's a little bit unnecessary, but it's better to be tight than loose. And then he's got a nice ratchet in the waist. And then you can see another little issue he's got is this dangly skirt that just doesn't peg in, which is kind of annoying. But we just lift up his skirt here and you can see the universal leg joints. Of course, we got ratchets, and then full forward kick, full backward kick, as much as the skirt will allow it. And then even a clicking swivel in the thigh. And then very nice double jointed knee that actually has like an extending piece. So very cool engineering, nicely done. And then a ball joint ankle, which can be a little bit too soft. But overall, like really great articulation in this guy. He's got everything a modern transformer would have. So good job for the like Chinese company that made this guy. Really great articulation. That's definitely not somewhere you can complain. Yeah, my only complaint is just the kibble is just very old school. It's kind of like car robots transformer style. It's just got too much junk hanging off of him, which really hurts his playability. And yeah, I guess that's about it for the articulation. When I actually first got this guy, I thought the quality was kind of like a model quality, maybe like a 6. I felt the plastic was a little bit disappointing. But now that I've handled this guy more, I appreciate the ratchets and all the nice little touches they did put on this guy. And some of the plastic feels pretty good, but he's still, I don't know, he still feels a little bit under Transformers quality. I think this is kind of like a brittle model kit kind of plastic, which can maybe be a little bit thin in places, especially like this little dangly piece in the back here. I really don't like the whole armature section, and then yeah, just how thin this plastic feels. And it's the kind of plastic where if you flex it, it's more likely to break. So I would say like quality wise, this guy's probably a 7. He's definitely not like standard Transformers quality of like an 8 or higher. But anyway, so to transform this guy, we are just gonna, actually I'll save that for later because I don't want his skirt getting in the way, but we can just unpeg this skirt and it'll be on this armature here. And we can kind of do the same thing with these window panels. I think another problem with this guy is he just feels fiddly. A lot of the things don't peg in place, like these don't actually peg in place. The windows of the cab here don't peg in place. They're all just like loose and floppy. You can kind of get them shoved into the shoulder so they're out of the way, but they really don't peg in place. And then you can just peg this. I mean, for robot mode, nothing pegs in place. Like this doesn't peg in place. It's supposed to peg in place for vehicle mode, but that doesn't work very well either. He does have like a little bit of parts forming. You do have to pull the shoulder siren area out. I'm okay with that because this just looks really cool as his chest. And then, of course, you have to get his head out of the way. And then they do a really cool thing back here, which I really appreciated, is they fill out the back of the ankles here. It's got this joint that when you transform the foot, it slides into his calf. And then you have like the foot transformed, and then you're just going to, you got to fold this little flap up and then point the toes up. And that's his feet pretty much done. So pretty simple transformation as far as the legs go. And then you're just going to squeeze the legs together. Of course, they're going to clip together right here on this little clip. And then they do a nice thing that Transformers don't do anymore, is that these actually slide into place, which I think is a little bit more premium than having the leg open and then there's like an armature where you fold the leg in. I think it's nice when Transformers used to do that, like Transformers Cybertron. is kind of when they stopped. And then you got this whole thing to deal with, which is kind of annoying. It's actually that actually worked out exactly right. So that's how you want it to look. But it's got a couple different joints on here, so you might end up folding it the wrong way a couple times. Okay. But I've transformed this guy a few times, so that kind of helps. But the first time, it just is very confusing how this armature is supposed to line up. And then we can start dealing with his huge skirt back here. So we just unfold it, and then it's got this other little panel here that unfolds. And you can see this is where the wheels are going to end up. And we can go ahead and sandwich that together as well, get that ready for vehicle mode. And you can see that's going to cover up a lot of the stuff in the back. And then we have this little center of the windshield area. We're going to have to fold that up. Wait, no, that folds down actually. It folds up for robot. It's back here for robot mode. And then we're going to fold this combiner port away by just moving up this little windshield, whatever section that's supposed to be. And then you can see he's kind of taking shape. And then we got to get his arms in the right position. So they have like these little interesting grooves right here, and those correspond to these right back here on the waist. And this is kind of where the figure feels less premium than it is just because all this random junk hanging off of him. And this is where I actually, when I got him out of the box, I thought this figure was actually going to be very low quality. But now that I've handled him, he actually is pretty good quality. And then you're going to collapse the shoulder into the chest. So you're just going to squeeze that down. And then that should allow you to peg this thing into the arm. And then because the arm's double jointed, it's a little bit hard to line up. Okay, there you go. And then you're going to do the same thing with the other side. And of course, the nose cab is just going to line up here. And then you're just going to squeeze that together. And that's pretty much half the side done. I'll do the same for the other arm. Okay, there's his truck mode. And without his shell forming, you can see this is how the truck would look. It doesn't quite work. It's close. If there was just a panel right here, this would actually be a pretty decent looking truck mode by itself. But it looks much cooler with this shell, so I do have to give credit there. So you're going to go ahead and get that down. And then once it's in position, everything closes up quite nicely. Yeah, just when I got this guy out of the box, I was very overwhelmed by all the loose parts just flopping everywhere. But it's really not too bad. You kind of get used to it. And then the wheel well is going to peg right here. You just kind of close everything up. And actually, before I do that, the directions don't say what to do with his magnum here. So I just like throw it back here. It's a good spot for it. And then if you were wondering, there's not enough space back here for his core robot, unfortunately. So his robot can't really ride in vehicle mode. And then, yeah, you just squeeze everything down. And then there's these little tabs, or these little holes in the feet. And that actually corresponds with these plastic tabs in the trailer. So that's going to help you get everything nice and closed up. All right, and then there's his like basically SWAT van SUV mode. And this kind of becomes the bumper. And everything's nicely clipped into place. Now he feels pretty good and solid now that the armatures aren't flopping around everywhere. The only thing I really have an issue with in this vehicle mode is this thing. Just does not peg in. It's supposed to, but then it just comes loose. Could probably use a little bit of glue in there to get some more friction so it'll hold better. But yeah, overall that's his vehicle mode. And then you're going to put this, whatever this thing is, flashlight, chaff grenade launcher, I don't know. And then put a siren bar on. And then finally, this will just clip on top. Not the best weapon storage, especially because there's like space down here. And his gun doesn't fit down here either. I don't know where it's supposed to go. But yeah, good looking vehicle mode. It's pretty large. I'd say this vehicle mode, probably like a, I don't know, 7. It's a little bit generic, but not bad looking, very futuristic. It looks a little bit like a future garbage truck, unfortunately. And then we get his little head robot. It does have parts forming. You'd have to pull this like shield kind of piece off the top. And you got this robot looking thing. And then you're just going to open up the legs and then open up the arms and unpeg them from the side. And you can see this is very like Diaclone looking. And then you just fold up the head here, which is unpainted. But very cool head sculpt. I'm surprised you can even tell this guy's like the size of my thumb. And then you just peg this on to the back here, and you can fold up the combiner joint, but then you can't plug this into place, which I don't know. It's kind of a weird oversight. Oh, also that can just come right off on these tiny little clips, which I don't know. That's a little bit sketchy. But yeah, the directions do say just pull that off. And there you go, like this little cool Diaclone guy who's very posable. He's got like bicep rotation, elbow joints, which are 90 degrees pretty much, ball joint, neck, and then universal joints for the hips, and then 90 degrees on the knee as well. And then this guy feels a little bit more like a model kit because there's no screws really holding them together. It's all just pegged together and then put together with some glue probably. So this guy feels a little bit more sketchy, and compared to like your standard Headmaster, that's how big a Headmaster is compared to this guy. So they really don't scale very well. But yeah, really cool looking core robot. Unfortunately, it makes the combined robot look a little less cool because the head just turns into like a lumpy mess compared to these guys, which compact into a head very nicely. So a little bit too engineered, really unnecessary articulation, but it looks cool, and then it scales very nicely with the vehicle. This guy looks like he could actually just hop in and drive it. So pretty cool set, very fun. And then here he is with the Voyager figure. So not too bad a scale. You could kind of see that almost working. This guy's just a little bit too big for this police car, but it's pretty close scale, not bad. So yeah, I'm gonna probably end up selling this guy. I'm just not super in love with him, and I just need to downsize my collection. So go ahead and check that out on my links. I'll link Sir Toys in the description, even though Sir Toys is closing, unfortunately. I don't know what I'm going to do. That's how I've been always finding my Chinese figures. So it's going to be an adjustment period. Hopefully Paul's new site, Toy Run, will take off, and that will kind of take care of itself. But you can still possibly order things from there depending on when you watch this, if you special order it. All right, so I'll leave links to both. Thank you, Sir Toys, for 10 years of business, and I'll see you next time.